This is
Jimena Cho.
We're the co-founders of Chozen Retreat, an eco-retreat sanctuary on the banks of the St. Sebastian River and Preserve, which is a host to 45 endangered species and a 22,000-acre preserve, deeply immersed in nature. And we had the incredible privilege and honor to host our dear soul sister, Gabriella Wright, here at Chozen a few weeks back, and got to spend some really sacred, special time with Gabriella, our soul sister. And today we are so honored to have her on our program, The Chozen Path, as our thought leader for all the amazing work that she's doing in the world to alleviate suffering and people dealing with mental illnesses and challenges. So welcome, Gabriella. We're so happy to have you here. We just wish that you were actually here, but you're here virtually.
Yes, I want to dive into the screen right now. You see that river behind, and go and explore in your little gondola, your sustainable boat, and go and see the hidden treasures of the world that you've created. I loved it. Thank you. I'm actually really, it's funny, I'm very, it's always interesting to do interviews with and exchanges with people you love, because I love you both, and I admire you as much as I feel that you respect and admire my work, and I always get very sensitive, because it's in a true space of sharing that we can co-create a world together, and so being interviewed by my friends and in this exchange, it's always more precious. I feel that there's something that is just beyond this conversation. I think that's at least what I got from coming to Chozen, in the middle of this, insanity, whether it's our inner insanity, our inner confusion, the global pandemic, political confusion. I feel that I was welcomed by you, and I was treasured by the world that you've created. And for me, that's the most beautiful illustration and gift that I've taken back to California right now, and I really miss you. I miss the Chozen Path. You created a beautiful retreat, and I see where it lies. It lies in healing. It lies in community. It lies in giving a voice to people, to encourage them to continue their journey. So it's an honor for me. I mean, that was a long-winded introduction from my side, but it's just to say that I'm very sensitive to us, because you're my friends and we're on this boat together and on the river of life together. So it's a privilege to be chosen by you.
Well, it's definitely a privilege to walk this path with you, and it really is such an honor. And we love that you had the experience here. We believe really the healing experience that's created here at Chozen has a lot to do with the nature that surrounds the space. And I want you to tell us a little bit about the organization that you've created for mental well-being, and also to see how we can share some of these beautiful ideas of pairing or being in spaces that have nature, and how that helps in some of the work that you're doing. But first, please tell us about Never Alone.
Thank you so much. So, Never Alone. I always like to say that everything that we start as an activist, as a human being, as someone who's active and wants to give back to society, it always starts from a personal story. It just always does, because it moves us into action. It moves us to see where our blind spots are. And Never Alone started because of a blind spot that I was completely unaware of, and to a desolate tragedy of the mind, mental health. My sister, unfortunately, passed away by suicide 2.5 years ago, June 2018, and that was just 3 days prior to my birthday. So for me, it's still, I would call it a hurricane of emotions. But at the same time, what happens when a hurricane passes? There's debris, there's fertile land, but we don't see it. It's underneath, these layers that are just turbulent, and yet they calm down. So after I'd say the first moment, I realized, I was like, how was I not able to see this? How was I blind to this? Because I want to say, like, we're lucky we're in a collective where today, especially in the US, there's this movement of well-being. There's this movement of meditation practitioners, yoga teachers, and all of this thing is facilitated. But in other parts of the world, we don't have access to those things. And I was like, how come I've been practicing meditation for 20 odd years now? How come I wasn't be able to see something beyond that? How come I wasn't being able to get into the mind of my sisters and not understand that it wasn't just about calming the mind and yoga, meditation, that it was actually an illness, and that I was not aware of. So all of a sudden I was awakened to a real struggle that actually is perceived in all of us. We all have existential depression at different parts of our lives. We all experience extreme trauma, sometimes imposed, sometimes from exterior events and occurrences, sometimes global occurrences like tsunamis and things like that. But that all has an imprint on one's mental health. And I was oblivious to that. I knew about my mental hygiene, but I wasn't aware of the depth of some of the turmoil and ditches and trenches that we can dive into when we suffer from, whether it's schizophrenia, bipolar, chronic depression, anxiety, panic attacks. And all of this is, sometimes you can't just calm the mind. You have to destigmatize the conversation first so people can liberate themselves. So all of a sudden I got involved into that, and I realized that, wow, I could not save my sister, but what I can do is maybe learn. I can learn. And when you learn, it's a very humbling experience because you have to go right back to the beginning of what it is to be human, who you are, what is your purpose, and also how do you experience the other as yourself. So it really opens your heart through the grief to experience humanity. So that's really, the backstory behind, I would say, the motivation, the personal story behind Never Alone. And then the other aspect of Never Alone is actually the organization, the people, the teamwork. And this is where, I was so happy that you met Deepak Chopra when you came to San Diego. So I came to Chozen, and then you came to our land, our offices, and you were, you met Deepak Chopra, our co-founder. You met Poonacha Machaya, our other co-founder. And these are incredible men and leaders who were very moved by my story and by my raw vulnerability, in the sense that I was like, shit, I didn't see this. And it's like, well-being's great, but if we can't translate well-being into something that goes beyond just our personal self and the personal community, and we need to go deeper into there's an illness and there's a sickness that we need to help people. And it starts with conversations. It starts with awareness, because I know that my sister was scared of being locked up in a madhouse. She actually said that to me. And I was like, that's strange, it's bizarre. And she was like, I don't want that. So that what is the exit plan when you already have an image of what a madhouse is? And obviously I'm using these words because she used them. But today, obviously, we cannot use them. These are not politically correct words. And that's why we have to recreate a language, reframe a language around mental health and mental institutions and places that allow healing. But also, just, when you reframe and recreate distinction, there's no separation anymore. So Never Alone, going back to the bigger picture, is a mental well-being movement, and a suicide prevention initiative to destigmatize mental health, to destigmatize suicide, to be able to empower everyone with mental hygiene tools and democratize it. Today, we need to democratize these tools so that people can have access. You know, it's expensive to have a therapist. We know it's not covered by insurances in most countries. You know, America's one place, but there's other countries in the world too. You know, it's a luxury, it's an addition to have a therapist. So it's using technology, creating well-being tools. That's why Poonacha Machaya is with us. He's an incredible social tech well-being expert, and we're looking at new ways to create this. So it's not that we have a solution. Never Alone is not a solution, but it's a collective endeavor to create solutions that we all have. So it's really an inclusive, that's why we're calling it a movement, because it's beyond us. We're just trigger starters, you know?
Right. Well, I can even imagine, you know, what you've been through in the last 2.5 years after, you know, this tragedy in your life. But at the same time, I do feel that it's a gift in the way that basically you've come face to face with this reality that it's so prevalent in our society these days. And yes, taking the stigma out of this will help so many people, will really allow us to have the conversation, and will also I feel what you said as a meditator, and I'm a meditator for many years as well, and I know that it's helped my life tremendously. But it's like the work, I feel like the work is daily and it continues, and it's not like because you've been meditating 10 years or however long, you know, you're going to attain some kind of just complete mental peace state in your mind or in your life. I think it's daily practices, daily work, and so I feel like coming from a person like you that's been there and that knows so much about meditation, and really we've had some beautiful conversations on spirituality. It's beautiful that you can kind of also be quite real about that, you know, these things are happening, you know, to all of us. We all experience stress or maybe anxiety or whatever it is, or just, you know, dealing with our daily media or things that can create a little bit of imbalance, right?
External toxicities that we deal with that, you know, a lot of people don't have the tools, you know.
Yeah.
You know, we were working with an organization also based in LA, Black's Women's Day of Meditation. And, you know, when you go into, you know, South Central LA and South side of Chicago, you don't see a lot of meditation or yoga studios there. So, you know, this is really, unfortunately, is a privilege for people who have resources, and it should be, you know, like you said, democratized. And mental well-being is a right of all humanity. Exactly. And I think through community and through the work that you guys are doing with the Never Alone movement, with all the incredible mindfulness work that Deepak has done, and leveraging technology with what Poonacha brings to the table, and having this chatbot, which I think is unbelievable, because I'm also very passionate and a little bit of a, you know, technology geek myself. I love innovation. I love leveraging technology and, you know, really being able to utilize it for good, for humans, you know, for the benefit of humans, and not being controlled by technology, but really utilizing it as a tool for good. And so
it's wonderful. And I also love the name, of course, Peewee. What does it stand for, Peewee?
Peewee is okay, so she's an emotional AI mental health chatbot. She's available 24/7, which is amazing. Kind of love that. But her nickname, Peewee, is my little sister's nickname. So it's, you know, it's a very cute homage. It's a wink. It's an homage. But Poonacha, obviously the tech well-being expert in our team, he actually says that it's an acronym for people who interact with intention.
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful acronym. Yeah. It's such an honor for your sister too. No, it's a really amazing way to honor her. You know, and the work that you're doing is really, you know, in so many ways, the amount of people that you're able to reach through this work and the platform that you're building and the movement that you're building, means that the pain and suffering that you went through, as tragic as it was, you're making it have an impact on so many people's life to prevent this. And I think with COVID and all the anxiety and depression around the pandemic, so many more people are experiencing isolation and loneliness to record high degrees. And I wonder how that has impacted, because you're in the front lines, you're in the trenches. What are you seeing out there in terms of mental illness and what's happening in the world? I mean, I can only imagine it's accelerated by exponential numbers.
Oh yes, I mean, exactly to your point, Tony. Obviously, even before COVID, pre-COVID, every 40 seconds someone dies in the world of suicide. So already, I mean, just to put that out there, that's already, it's a huge number, and that's globally. During the more, I would say, the quarantined aspect, the more restricted time of COVID, which was the beginning of this year, we saw a 300% rise in the use of hotlines, suicide prevention hotlines. So imagine, so we don't actually have the stats now, but it looks like there's obviously an increase in suicide. For example, pharma suicides in India has gone exponential. Suicides we were not even talking about. I mean, it's always taboo anyway, everywhere. But in India during these times, the last month, there's been, unfortunately, a couple of Bollywood actors who have died by suicide, which wasn't happening before. And this is during lockdown. So obviously there's now like different regions that are more, it's come out in the press, and now there's things to talk about it as well. There's ways to talk about it, but it's just affected us so much. Loneliness, depression, they're calling it the second pandemic. So, we have this physical, I'm going to break it down into different areas. I'm going to say the health, physical hygiene pandemic, which is COVID, our immunity, our system, our inflammation. How do we, fight off this virus and for our own survival? But then what do we do with ourselves once we've gone through this? What is the other survival that we need to sustain, which is our mind, which is our mental sanity, as well as going through, the experience of isolation and COVID and depression. The environment, unfortunately, is not allowing, I would say, peace to just be a language, So we need to, cater to this second pandemic. And that's why, obviously, technology we're using as one of the main forms now, because we're disconnected physically. But that doesn't mean that we cannot stay connected. And unfortunately, I would say technology has a bad reputation because of social media, selfies, the fact that it's all about me, myself, and I. And I remember one conversation, since we're, in the Chozen community right now, but one conversation I had with the Hugging Saint, Amritanandamayi, when I was with her last year, and we were talking about AI and, we were just sharing ideas, and she said, Gabriella, you need to flood technology with consciousness. That's the only way, because you can never rid technology of the human system right now, because it's too embedded. So now we have to live with it and recreate a dialogue with it, but flood it with consciousness. So that's exactly what we're trying to do. And I think that's one way of dealing with the second wave of this pandemic, which is the mental health crisis.
That's right. That's
a great way to look at it, is really flooding the airwaves, the digital airwaves, with consciousness and positive vibes and energy, and really getting out there, because so many people are now connected. People of all ages, colors, shapes and sizes from around the world. I think everybody has now been digitized and uploaded into the digital world, and is familiar and comfortable. So it is really a moment. And I couldn't imagine better partners for you to have, with Deepak and Punacha and Claudio, who we met there as well, who's amazing. You have an incredible, team of heart leaders, and real change makers in this space. And, it's unlimited what you guys can accomplish. So we're really just so grateful to be on this path with you. It's such an important piece of life is kind of this connection between like the hygiene that we talked about, the mental health hygiene, kind of with the physical hygiene, as well as, being in balance with nature. And I think that's something that we're really, weaving here at Chozen, is our own experience. Because prior to COVID, we've owned this property for 7 years, and we had only spent 10 days here consecutively. And it's such a travesty.
7 days with you.
So it's just kind of, it's in some ways, in many ways, there's the silver lining, if there is, for this pandemic, is people really grounding into what's important in their lives. And being with your couple and your partner and your family, and kind of that special moment, or those few interactions you've had with beautiful people like yourself and Punacha, and the incredible honor and opportunity to meet with Deepak and spend time with him and really be in his presence, and learn from him, and support the work that he's doing around really kind of helping people liberate themselves of the shackles of depression, and all of these challenges that we all deal with on a daily basis at varying degrees, and like Jimena said, I grew up in an intentional community started by my grandmother, who was an American-born guru. And so I was, spirituality and mindfulness and meditation was, fed to me at a very early age. I had access to it, but one has to really commit to it themselves. And like, Jimena said earlier, it's a daily practice. It's a daily sadhana, it's a daily commitment to really your spiritual hygiene, physical, mental well-being. And so what you guys are doing with Never Alone is so important. And I know that this is a very opportune moment, because on October 10th, it's World Mental Health Day. And so, which is, is right here around the corner. And so why is this important, and how is Never Alone leveraging this milestone to amplify your mission of Never Alone?
So we started last month, for example, was Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So we started just slowly implementing our campaign. So our campaign aspect, which is an ongoing campaign, which supports different tools to support on mental health and suicide prevention and mental hygiene. So the campaign that we've called is called Love in Action, which I love. Love in Action for me, it really says it all. Never Alone says it all, and Love in Action says it all. So it's kind of, we're making it very easy to understand. Never Alone.
If you have any questions, just ask Pee-wee.
Yeah, exactly. And then so basically I can just go and meditate in a cave, like him and I, we can go off, or I'll come to Chozen and live there, and Pee-wee does all of the work, and, Love in Action continues its ongoing, outgoing campaign. But it really speaks for itself. I think what we're trying to make accessible on these days, like obviously World Mental Health Day is extremely important, but World Mental Health Day is every day. You see, it's why am I saying that? Because, and I'm going to link it back to you, because I think it's very important that we get there. And for me, it's it's such an important subject of today. World Mental Health means there are several ways to see it. There's World Mental Health meaning, actually, let's talk about the mental health of the world. Are we talking about actually the mental health of our planet? What is the mental health of our planet? But hold on, we're talking about also World Mental Health Day. What does it mean for the individual, our own mental health? I think if we're able to reframe the conversation, that there's a mental space, the mental well-being of ourselves is actually connected to the world, the planet's well-being, then I think we might be able to create a new conversation where not only the sustainability of our planet is right now going to be taken care of, because we know that if we don't take care of our minds, we will literally not be able to function. And if we don't take care of our outer extended body, which is the extension of our mind, our mental health, and our planetary health, then we won't have a home. And we will basically won't even have a humanity that will be able to sustain itself. So I like, challenging what we are. And I think that's what we need when we have these World Mental Health Days. Yes, we're anchoring tools. We're completely allowing the conversation to happen, but we need to take it further into actionable items. I'm very excited on a personal, you and I, and obviously all those who are going to watch this, but David Attenborough released his documentary, last week on Sunday, and I watched it, and I'm like, wow, this man, he said something which I loved so much. He said, we're not apart from nature, we're a part of nature.
For sure.
And that is what we are with our minds too. Our mental health is not different from the planetary health. And if we're able to connect this, then wow, humanity will get it. We'll all get it. We'll be moved into action. We'll become love in action. We won't have to be a token of love in action.
The ultimate harmony is the harmony with the planet. And yeah, I think that will definitely bring the peace to our hearts and our minds. And I think this is kind of the big calling that it's become more and more clear in this moment of grounding. I think that that's actually the biggest gift that probably is going to come out of this pandemic, and it's just the gift of slowing down, because I think the world was just moving so fast that we just really didn't realize our degree of consumerism and just how fast we're just sucking everything, all the life out of our beautiful planet. And so I think just coming back into harmony with the planet absolutely will bring back the peace that we need in our minds.
Inner peace. I think, the more, that's the thing. It's like, I think the more we realize who we are truly, we talk about the great wisdom traditions, self-inquiry. The self-inquiry is, who are we? Who am I? That self-reflection. We don't do it anymore. We've almost lost our capacity to think, unfortunately. I'm not talking about the happy few who know how to talk or to engage or to, sublimate and be an active participant in humanity. But I'm talking about people who aren't given the tools, who don't know. And I think that's really what, we're trying to do. Love in action are tools to, for example, we have the 4 A's: acceptance, affection, attention, and appreciation. How do we create that into 4 ways of helping people? And it's very simple, but if their practice is a daily practice, as little achievable moments, then all of a sudden you create a sangha, a community, which you're doing, and then all of a sudden that sangha becomes a global community. And then all of a sudden we realize that, we're really, truly experiencing humanity in oneself.
That's right. It's also very much about not just serving the planet and Mother Earth, but serving one another, right? Lifting each other up and just seeing how every action, we can contribute every day to just making someone smile or help in any way that we can. I think that that's definitely the medicine also to heal humanity.
100%. Service and seva is really our mission. I think that's what is our purpose. That's our higher purpose on earth.
That's
and is to get out of our own self-pitying. And we talk about mental health, when we're all so enwrapped in our own personal agendas and schedule and self-importance and our egos and moving so fast, we forget about the other. And it's in that selfless act of service and kindness that I think we find happiness. And I think that that's really a path to mental well-being, and something that my grandmother, was a big, activist in serving others and, feeding everyone, in the words of Neem Karoli Baba, love everyone, feed everyone, serve everyone. And I think many spiritual teachers, and leaders and thought leaders like Deepak agree. It's community, sangha, it's service, it's seva, and it's mindfulness, and it's your practice of spirituality. And you know, everybody should have access, equitable access to those tools, and it should be in a way that's not so difficult or foreign for people to access, in a way that doesn't necessarily need to come from any particular religion. It's anybody should have access to these tools for transformation, as you talked about. And you know, the faiths that do provide those tools for their followers, they benefit from it, you know, and you can see it. And so I think what you're providing is a very democratized platform for people to access mental well-being through love in action, which is really a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful mission. And we're so, you know, happy to be supporting you in this mission and the work that you're doing. And, you know, you've already had such a successful career as an activist and as an actress and as a humanitarian. You know, is this your life's work? Like, what to you would say, you know, I've accomplished my mission on earth? What would be a result or an outcome that you would say, you know what, Tony, I've now, you know, if I'm not here tomorrow on this physical plane, you know, and I've, you know, honored my sister in the way that you're honoring her on an everyday, that you do every day, what is the thing that you think would bring you that level of fulfillment? Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's a really beautiful question because it's making me emotional. I'm not a crybaby, but I am moved. I always get moved. I'm moved into, so it's good. I always feel like, great, I'm alive.
Very important.
Very important to be alive when we're human, when we're here, you know? It's important to embrace it all. So I embrace it all. You know, I think one of the things that will top everything, at least on the seva, because I'm a, like you said, like humanitarian. For those who don't know me, I've been, you know, practicing being, meaning, it's weird to say practicing being, that's very Buddhist. Sorry, that's my Buddhist getting in there. It's more like I've been in seva, so doing humanitarian work to end violence against women over years in Nepal, India, Burma. And that's been, you know, I started in street kids and you know, traveling all around, mostly developing nations to explore and see how I could be hands-on on grassroots initiatives and starting them. So I have all of that background and I love it. And then I think for me, one of the aspects would to really see a global community come together. And I think the platform is the beginning of that. And the addition to the platform was, I remember, I shared this story this morning actually with someone at our office. 7 years ago, I woke up and I was in India and I was thinking, I was like, you know what I've noticed? When I raise money, when I go and ask people who have funds, they're not, the fact that they give money, it's not moving them. It's not changing them. I'm on the field, so it changes me. But the donors are not connected to their transformation. I'm connected to it. They're not. And I was like, how can we, because I know that when you do seva, like you said, selfless service, you're moved. It changes you. It creates happiness. It does. It changes all the pain in an instant when you see a smile on a child, or, you know, when you see a mother happy because she can actually, you know, feed her children or get fresh water. It changes you. And that stays with you forever. So I was like, how can I create a pathway for these donors who have a lot of funds, who don't have time because they're in the rat cage, in the rat race, and how can I create transformation for them? Because I'm thankful to them, but I need them to feel what I feel. So I came up with this idea 7 years ago about, what if we were able to measure time? So, and be rewarded for our time. So because I was living that lifestyle pre-COVID, flying into a country 2 days, flying out, sometimes I would have a couple of hours, you know, in the afternoon. I'd be like, what can I do with these 3 hours? So I would look at local things, or maybe there's a church that needs like a, you know, maybe I need to go to the RSPCA and walk the dogs and things like that. And I was like, well, what if I created a platform that allows people who are travelers like us and who have time, and they can connect to this network and go to these grassroots initiatives and basically count their time, and you know, they're reading books to the elderly in a pension, you know, house and things like this. And so I've always had that idea. And then now when I associated myself with Punacha and our Never Alone platform, we basically adapted that idea into a love in action possible future currency that's involved with how do we share our time, how do we share the content that's created with love, how, and those tokens can be translated and be given to people who do not have enough money for, you know, therapy and all of this. And so it's really creating a currency of exchange that's based on action, that's based on time, that's measured that way. And I was like, I think if that's able to happen in the, you know, obviously, you know, building platform, there are many stages to it, but I would feel that the combination of technology and personal transformation of the heart, meaning we're moved by what we're doing, then I feel that humanity is awakening to a new dawn, because we're moved, we're awakened by the language of the heart, without sounding new agey or phony or whatever. But you know, we use the heart for a reason. Either we're moved by when we watch a film, or we're moved by a speech, or we're moved by someone's presence. But we need to be moved into action, and the heart and the empathy and the compassion. And I think that for me would be my life goal. Then I can just go and liberate personally in a cave and, you know, do Mataji or whatever. We joke about it.
We love that, our Mataji.
I can just, you know, read all the slokas and like study them and chant. And that's my personal thing. But for the world, I wish that everyone transforms and is moved.
I have tremendous faith that this will be accomplished way sooner than later, because everything's moving exponentially, you know, at incredible speed, especially in my opinion, in the healing of humanity and the planet. I feel positive about it. I feel like it's all now coming into real focus, as that this is the next step in this evolution and in this
and we
humanity.
will see this in our lifetime.
Yeah.
We have the opportunities to be the change that we want to see in the world, and to see the change that will happen from us all coming together
Absolutely.
towards these common goals. And I think there's been a consciousness awakening and a revolution
Absolutely.
that's happening in the midst of all this darkness and all of this pain and suffering. You know, it's like the phoenix is rising out of the ashes, and you can feel it. You know, we're all going through it kind of at an individual level, but as the collective, you know, there's so much pain and suffering on so many levels, but there's so much transformation and beauty that's coming out of it, that this is really, it feels like the most fertile time for this change to happen. And as everybody says, you know, it needs to break down. Our systems need to break down in order to break through. And that's really what we're doing now, is reinventing everything at every level. It's systemic change. It's global systemic change, which starts with us, you know, individually. And I think that that's really the work you're doing. Really kind of traverses those different, you know, the individual and the collective, you know, and the global consciousness, which is really important. And you know, Deepak published an article, I think a couple of weeks ago, on the global biome, you know, the planetary biome, you know, and how, you know, we've basically, you know, through our extractive practices and, you know, extractive agricultural practices, have really destroyed the soil and the earth. And, you know, with these movies that are coming out, like Kiss the Ground, that Woody Harrelson just did, there are solutions that are out there. It's not all negative. And so I think that it's really important, because the media, you know, does promote a lot of fake news, and it does have information that is inaccurate
or negative, maybe just instead, like we really just need uplifting news and uplifting ideas
and solutions.
Solutions, yeah. And I think that just gives us a hopeful and like you said, love in action. Like, let's get in action to
let's figure. We know that there's challenges. We may not all agree on the origin of those challenges, but let's try to come together as a community, regardless of our beliefs or our differences, and let's really try to work together to make it happen, because there are a lot of existential threats that we're dealing with. Climate change and sea level, rises are just ones that, are clear and present right in our backyard here in Florida, in the work that we're doing.
I wanted to go back to the idea about having a platform where people can donate their time or skills or something that might, and then get a token in return to basically just kind of change the model of thinking that everything maybe needs to be rewarded with dollars or with money, and really it's more about actually rewarding your actions and how we serve each other, right? So I think that's a brilliant idea. I definitely have had some conversations along the same lines. So I love that you're putting this in action, and of course any way that we can be supportive to this idea and all of the ideas, everything that you're doing. And with that, I wanted to ask, to do get in action, love in action, what is the best way that we can support your organization, that other people can get involved?
Okay, so thank you. Thank you. Yes, well, first of all, so the platform that we're building it right now. We're working with Hedera Hashgraph, who we've partnered. So for people who do not understand blockchain, I didn't really understand it either, but what I do know is that Hedera are one of the first trusted and secure, transparent based technology that allows the beginning to the end to be transparent and safe and secure. So we're building the Never Alone platform on this technology. So it's a first. It's very exciting because they're also involving themselves into understanding how to be of contribution. So we got a grant from them as well. So obviously any donations that can, continue help us to continue to build the technology as well. We're in the making. We're, we're weekly behind the scenes in the tech, den. But that's what we're doing. But then there's
incubator.
Incubator, exactly. But it's exciting. We're already getting the first, looks and feels, and it's going to be very exciting. So there's that. But then there's also, we have our campaign page, which is Love in Action. We have special meditations that we've designed for Love in Action to trigger it into our lives. So you can support by going to loveinaction.love, and you'll be able to see all of our different initiatives. Obviously, share the word about Peewee, because she's a free tool. So Peewee, you can by text message, by Facebook Messenger. So people, in Asia, we use a lot Facebook Messenger, example, in India, this and that. You can call, she's not an app, but she's on a web browser. So it's nice because it's not, on my phone, I've got so many apps, I don't even open them anymore.
Right.
But text messages I respond to. So Peewee is just a terrific.
How did you engage with Peewee? Is it that?
You can go onto neveralone.love and she pops up, and you just put your, if you want to connect with her on Facebook Messenger, she'll take you to your account. But if you just want to text, you text the number and she texts you back directly. And she gives you daily exercises. It's AI. So basically AI is connected to 5,000, actually a lot more therapists, but 5,000 therapists have built her. So she's built on resiliency tools, meditation she gives advice, and she learns with you. So it becomes a personal relationship with the user. It's not a generic experience.
Okay.
So the more you interact with her, the more she knows what you need.
It's fascinating.
And she can also,
it's fascinating.
So amazing.
And it's incredible. This is what, going back to the conversation with Amma, this is what she was meant. She was like, flood it with consciousness, use AI for good, and you can. And in a pandemic right now, technology is the only thing that's holding us together.
It really is.
Okay,
so let's embrace it and let's flood it with consciousness. And that's what you're doing, leveraging blockchain technology and AI, which is incredible. And their Hashgraph, I'm actually familiar with the platform, and it's probably one of the more cutting edge distributed ledger technology that's out there, and one of the safest from what I've heard from a lot of people who are pretty well versed in the space. So congratulations on that. I think it's really it's an amazing accomplishment what you've done already. So it's really exciting to see how many people's lives this is going to impact. We're going to play around with the Peewee bot as well.
Play with Peewee. I think to not say anything wrong, but I think we're just under 1 million text messages exchanged with Peewee already.
Oh, amazing.
We launched last month. And
that's incredible.
Yeah, she was able to decipher crises and this and that and help. And, so it's very interesting because, the whole point, like, for example, my sister, she was alone when, her panic overwhelmed her to the point of her own extinction. Let's put it elegantly like that. But she was alone. There was no one available. It was in the middle of the night, time zones, this, that, phones off, like things like that. And, I think if you can find a tool, sometimes it's very hard. And I've noticed that when you're going through something, whether it's a trauma, whether it's something that's happened to you personally, whether it's a global trauma, we all experience grief, and we're still in the middle of grief of our old lives, prior to the pandemic. It's very, very hard to communicate with people that because they have a projection of who they think you are, and you feel judged. But if you're able, that's why therapists exist. That's why, because it's someone who's neutral, it's someone who doesn't know you, but you're able to express yourself in a way where it's a neutral ground. And so this neutral ground, we're bringing, Peewee here, And also, by the way, Peewee can connect to counselors if you want to. That's an extra service. But all the grounds work that she does is quite a lot, before she connects you to a therapist. So the point, what I'm saying is that sometimes we need a community, right? It takes a village. We always use this expression, right? It takes a community, a village to bring up a child. Maybe the child today is really our inner child. Maybe we forgot to reconnect with that inner child. We talk about enchantment, we talk about all these things, but right now our inner child is in pain because it's alone, because it's scared, because it's uncertain, because the world is not the world that it was, and it will never be the same. And we're still holding on to certain things, jobs, material, consummation, the planet that's a lot of anxiety for the youth, They're like, shit, is it really true in 10 years we're going to be in a point of no return? Is that really true? Imagine what that does on a teenage mind. So all these things we need to incubate, nurture, and also know that you're not alone, because it feels very isolated when we're doing something like that.
Yes, can only imagine. Wow,
that's powerful. Powerful, and all we can say is just thank you for this incredible service that you're all doing to in this world. Deepak, what an honor to have met him too, and just to know that he's just reached masses and millions of people, and he's reached, he's on this planet to leave us some incredible gifts, and he's already touched so many lives, including mine. So it's incredible that he's part of your family and Punacha. What an honor, really, all of the team there at Never Alone, and which is really honored, like I said before, to be walking on the same path. So we thank you for being here with us today, sharing such a personal experience, and an experience of pain, but an experience that's also just that you've transformed into light, and transform it into how is this now going to serve the bigger purpose, how is this going to serve humanity. So I honored you, my sister, for that transmutation, and really like just for who you are. You're an incredible human being. Yes.
Well, you are too. And I'm very happy that you chose me on the chosen path, and you welcomed me into your sanctuary during a pandemic. I mean, God bless. Thank you. You saved me. You saved my sanity.
Well, we hope you come back very soon.
Yes,
it's not the same. Our sanctuary is not the same without you, our soul sister. And our home is your home, as you well know. And thank you for taking such good care of us in Los Angeles, and opening your heart and your home and your friends to us. And we really just are so grateful to be in community with you, and supporting the work that you're doing, and just walking this path together. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And everybody out there that's listening and watching, please support Never Alone and Love in Action. Donate, get involved, do what you can for your own mental well-being by serving others, and being part of the solution. So thank you all for tuning in and watching The Chosen Path, and listening to Gabriella Wright, our amazing change maker for this quarter. And thank you, Gabriella. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be in your virtual presence this evening.
It's all virtual these days, but we know that there's no distance in consciousness.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Much love.